Hi, my name is Ebony, the co-founder of Sea Potential.
And my name is Savannah Smith, co-founder of Sea Potential as well.
Yeah.
And today we're just gonna kind of have a conversation about our relationship to water and how it relates to the Puget Sound area. Ebony and I we're co-founders. We were co-workers before, roommates, so we know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of keep it conversational.
Perfect.
Ebony, let's talk about what our first interaction with the water was. What is the first interaction with water that you remember?
Yeah, I feel like I tell this all the time to people, so it's ingrained in my memory. And I hear people say the more you think of a memory, the less diluted it gets. But for me, I feel like the more I think of that memory, the more I can connect to it in that actual moment that it was had. So, but yeah, I grew up in the South, and this memory is particularly connected to South Carolina. I grew up in a small town named Darlington. A lot of land, just open space, but we actually got to live near a little creek that was by my house. You know, I was a child, so imagine me putting my foot on one side of the river. It wasn't very substantial, but to me then it did feel like a huge body of water. And me and my brother shared a lot of memories there where we were able to catch dragonflies and frogs, and just foster positive experiences. And so that is the first memory that I can actually remember. And it also is kind of how the work that I do today is inspired from. So it's cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I do get to hear that story from you sometimes. I love it every time you tell it. You know, I'm entertained. And for me, I guess usually I think of you heard me say this before too, but where my connection with water started, I always say that it started in the womb, and that's the case for, I guess, kind of all of us as people, if you think about it. But yeah, the first home I really knew, and one of the places I probably felt the safest and most secure in my life. So returning to water is a comfort and a feeling of peace in this moment, or in the present moment. But if I were to think of the specific memory that I have of my first interaction with water, or the most substantial, would be going to ocean shores when I was in first grade with my family out here in Washington. I'm really from California, but I don't really have memories connected to water there. So yeah, it was just hanging out at the beach, looking at shells. I've always been really fascinated by shells and wanted to collect them. I'm learning as I get older to leave them be on the beach. But I wanted to take them all when I was young, and that's what I remember.
Oh, that's also awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Not necessarily where you were born is also the place that gives you the most memories that impact you for the rest of your life. So,
right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, what was our other question on this paper? Let's see. Yeah, how's water affected you up until this point in your young adult life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like water has really become a big part of my identity. When I was young, I always knew I was a Pisces, so I'm a water sign, I am the water. But I found myself wanting to learn more about the ocean pretty early on when I was young, because I was growing up with animals, ranging from hermit crabs to peacocks. And I started checking out books about the ocean when I was in second grade, and just being fascinated about all the creatures that live there that I didn't have at home. And so from that point on, a teacher told me I should become a marine biologist. And so that's kind of stuck with me and kind of molded who I became. And, there's a lot of stuff in between, but as you know now, we work directly related to connecting people to water. Yeah. So, yeah.
Really always around water at this point, which is probably different than, I feel like for me, I had that moment, and those moments really impacted me a lot, and it held me on. But really, I didn't have actual moments with water again until going to college and now this part in my life. So it's just interesting that, just how substantial those moments can be. And now I feel like all of my moments, my happiest moments, my saddest moments, my most fearful moments, a lot of the different emotions that are invoked are still surrounded by water for me now. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes in the future.
Yeah. Water is our life now. It always was, but we realize it even more. Yeah, when you think about this relationship to water, what do you feel like influenced it or shaped it the most? Was it the water itself, or was it the people and experiences you had with water, animals, nature?
Ooh, yeah. We wrote this question and asked our youth to ask this question, but I don't even know if I necessarily know my own answer.
I know you talked about it a lot with like paddleboarding, your relationship to water in that way. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like water itself, it has probably been the most substantial part. I know, especially like my family wasn't necessarily supportive about my endeavors with the environment or some of my interest in protecting animals. So really those moments again in my childhood really helped me to stay connected, and now it's usually just me and water in this little bubble where we're making this connection. And so water itself has been the most influential in my water relationship. Although now, because we started this company and we're introducing the people to water and building their own personal relationships, people are becoming to be a part of that as well. So,
ooh, that's a good point. Yeah. Like now it's going to start becoming very, very people like focused and memories with people. That's a good point.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I also resonate with water kind of itself being the biggest driver for me. I've had like, you know, times at the beach and lake and stuff with my family, which of course contributes, and had like hermit crabs and stuff, so that influenced it. But I would say water itself, because it's more so like a feeling when I get into the water, just relaxing and like just flowing with it, and that's probably like the strongest influence for me. And it wasn't really something I related to my peers with, like Coulon Park, where I would swim a lot when I was younger, would often get like shut down for having high levels of E. coli, and like people would talk about water being dirty and not really get in it like that. And Alki Beach was a popular place to go in the summer just to like hang out and be cool, but like not to actually get in the water at all. So like, you know, people, my peers weren't really influenced in that. It was more like the water itself.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like I completely blank on the middle part of my life where we used to go on family vacations to the beach every year, but like for some reason that doesn't stick with me, and that's another story for another day about why that doesn't. I don't know, but
interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh. We're gonna have to continue this conversation
next time.
But so I know, you're not necessarily, well, you're not necessarily, you're not from Washington, but you lived here for a while now, and like how it connected to the Puget Sound itself do you feel, and like what places, you know?
Yeah, I feel pretty connected, although I haven't spent most of my life here, just because most of my water experiences have been here. So it's connected in that way. And actually when I first moved here, I went to work for a marine science summer camp and had my first opportunity to dive in cold water. And so that was up in Edmonds, on the Sound over there. Don't remember the park necessarily, but the place where I actually dove off of was the only dock left on the waterfront there. So it just has its own rich history, and also gave me one of my first experiences in the PNW. So yeah, feeling connected to Puget Sound for sure.
Yeah.
What about you? Because you've been mostly in Renton and you went to school in Bellingham. So is there a space that feels more connection, or?
Yeah, I would say kind of around the Seattle waterfront the most. When I was young, actually, like my dad used to like to go on ferry rides a lot, like as our family activity. He kind of goes through phases of he likes to do certain activities or go to certain restaurants for like a period of time, and then like we haven't really been on a ferry ride again in years. But we used to do it like all the time when I was younger, and so that had a big impact on me, just being on that giant ship and always seeing jellyfish every time. I'd just be like glued to the window or like out there in the breeze.
Dang. Jellyfish from the ferry, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, you could see a lot. I was looking, we took our youth on a ferry trip, and I was like looking in the water, looking for the jellyfish, you know, but I wasn't seeing them like I used to see them all the time when I was younger, so that was interesting.
Yeah, another thing to come back to.
Right. But yeah, I also remember like one of my first school field trips that I really remember was a trip to the Seattle Aquarium when I was in like maybe 3rd or 4th grade. And yeah, it was just like blown away, had the time of my life there. That was my type of field trip. And afterwards, like just walking like the pier, and found a little shop with my mom. She was a chaperone for the day, but she bought me like a little dolphin necklace that had like an abalone shell, and I still have it to this day.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it's been one of my most treasured pieces of jewelry.
You never wear it though?
Sometimes.
Oh.
I don't have a chain for it, so sometimes I'll have to like swap it out. But yeah, I have wore it when we went up on the space theme. Oh, you weren't with me that time.
Yeah.
But I worn it. Anyways, yeah, I would say those are the two like spots that stick out to me the most. And I already mentioned kind of Alki was always a popular place to go when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about now? Like, what makes you feel most connected to water now? Or what is your favorite thing to do involving water?
Good point, yeah. To connect with water, like in nature, I love tide pooling and seeing all the creatures. We tide pool together a lot, as you know, and it's always fun. Yeah, I would say that's one of my favorite things to do. And I bring my family more as I'm getting older, and I've always just loved seeing the curiosity of youth and other people as they get to experience these siblings of the sea.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, like just in my everyday life, I would say like taking a shower, I view it as a very like spiritual cleanse thing for my day, either whether I'm beginning or ending. Kind of helps me like release any negativity or anything I'm holding on to that I don't want to anymore. I release it to the water to help me transmute it. So.
Ooh, I love that. Okay. I will say, it made me think of, anyway, Hunter x Hunter in that scene where they're doing the figure out their power and the transmuting of the water and the leaf.
Yes,
okay.
yes. Oh, yeah. I love that scene.
Yeah, okay. Anyway.
Well, what about you? Yeah, what are your ways of connecting with water now?
Yeah, I feel like I've been leaning more towards water sports and activities. Always pretty been confident around talking to people and engaging in that process, so that connection with water feels pretty stable for me. But I feel like a lot of space where I can grow and challenge myself is doing water activities that are me and water solely. And so it really shows up through paddleboarding or going scuba diving or kayaking or or snorkeling eventually, which I'm going to get into this year. So just all these different avenues in which I can engage in water and like navigate some of that fear and really let go of the fear. Water is a powerful being in general, so that's nothing to deny, but really trying to understand that, respect and entity more so holistically. So I think I can do that best with the water activities that I get to partake in, which is a privilege in itself, but another conversation. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm excited to do some of that with you this upcoming weekend for Emily's birthday. We're going to kayak and paddle around the San Juan Islands. So I'm very excited.
That'd be awesome.
Yes.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you, Ebony, for this conversation with me. It's always fun talking about water and talking with somebody else who's obviously super passionate about it. So
yeah, I
know we've talked about these things and we'll continue to talk about them, but this was fun.
Yeah, per usual. We always have a good time and see potential. Okay, JK. Okay.